So welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Earth Noble Hub. Thanks for being here, ladies. Looking forward to our chat today. And our topic today is the gift of delegation, delegate to create. Now, this topic came up from last week's, we had a little chat, private chat amongst each other last week. We talked about delegation. And it brought up that very twisted sort of energy where there's a lot of programming, a lot of conditioning that is still in delegation, right? Because from the old paradigm, Old Testament, I was going to say, from the old paradigm view, it's almost like delegation implies hierarchy, right? There has to be a hierarchy. Like Sandrine was saying, you know, obviously she's waiting for her assistant in order to get stuck into doing the work. And I thought, this is so interesting. Because this is not that she needs her assistant in order to do the work, but I would almost so far to say, and Sandrine, you chime in when you're ready, but the way I saw it, because I could perceive it from my own perspective, is like the inspiration comes by having an assistant, having a person to co-create and collaborate with. So delegation is actually so much more than exploiting somebody or being too lazy to do it by yourself, right? So let's start with that. Who wants to chime in?
Well, delegation is something that I had to learn. I mean, in the corporate world, I had to learn that, and it gives you another element to your own work, in the sense that yes, you can do it better on your own, and you can probably also do it faster on your own. But what is, are you then enabling? Because I'm still looking at enabling, and also moving other people forward in their careers. Then you don't enable them, and then you don't give them an opportunity to actually also learn from something, or make a mistake, or grow in a task, or take more responsibility. And now I'm looking, I mean, if we're looking at it through the co-creation, this particular work we were talking about, it is actually something that I would prefer to actually be sitting with him together and talking about that, because I'm just tired about finding elements to it myself, because I just need another point of view. So the delegation also comes in with another point of view, and he's looking at it from this angle, and he's not, like Martina said, okay, I'm seeing 2 things, and the other one might be seeing 4 things, and in there he sees something else. He or she sees something else that could help you move forward. Sometimes the point of view, you have to then be very open about, what is going to come from that person, because it might be destroying what you found an absolutely crazy, good and fantastic idea. And then everybody goes like, it's bullshit. And then you're like, oh. So you can either choose, am I going to stick on with that storyline, or am I going to switch it? And that is another thing that delegation can brings you forward. And being a DIY person, doing a lot of things on my own and doing a lot of things by myself, it is really something that I needed to learn. But I enjoy it. I totally enjoy it. There are moments where I need it, and then there are moments where I don't need it at all, where I just know now it's better I do the thing on my own and just write it down and get done and get over with it, in a sense. So yeah, delegation is yeah. I mean, there are so many different aspects to it, but one of them is that you need to learn it, in a sense. It's something like this, the whole thing about meditation, or the whole thing about yoga, or the whole thing about art, or the whole thing about music. You have to do it, you have to practice it, you have to do it. Otherwise it's not working. You cannot just sit there and delegate. It's not working.
Yeah, I can't think of how many times I've been lazy in bed and not wanted to get up and really would have loved to delegate someone to use the toilet for me. But of course, that's not possible. So there's certain things we can't delegate. You know, and when you're delegating something, there's a huge level of trust involved, I think, too, right? Because if you have a vision for something and you're co-collaborating with someone to execute your vision, you know, maybe they're going to screw it up. Maybe they didn't hear you. Maybe they are just looking at things from a totally different perspective. You know, and you have to trust that whatever, you know, if you're delegating something, whatever is the outcome is what the outcome is meant to be. You know, even if it's not what your expectation was, you know, and then how can you course correct from that perspective?
And also here it is very important to keep it the famous KISS method, keep it smart and simple. Because when you, I mean, it depends on the delegation and the co-creation and the stuff that you're doing, but in my line of work, it's more like, apart from brainstorming on things, but then delegating work that needs to be done, it's also, you have to give the right instructions, you know, without overwhelming the person on how to do it. So it's keeping it, and for yourself, this is a very good exercise. Again, it's a very good exercise to keep in your mind, is that really what I wanted? Is it that simple or is it not? I mean, and then let it go. And you have to just let things go in a sense and trust. And then even when it comes back totally scrambled up or whatever, most time it doesn't. You actually can also find out that some people are taking the responsibility and then surprise you with something. So that is also the bright side of things. And it's the trust, it's the articulation, it's the letting go, it's the but again, it's work on your side. I mean, if you're just giving out total nonsense instructions, I mean, then total nonsense will come back. That's for sure.
Well, you know, I'm just thinking about what, you know, we in the US are delegating now with the political system. It's like, okay, we have these delegates that we've put into power to make choices for the rest of us. So in some cases, it's giving away your sovereignty because, okay, we can't do everything. So you know, I've just been thinking about that process and how for years and years and years, the delegates that we've been hiring to run our country are working from an agenda that's not necessarily our own. So how do we come in alignment, right, to co-collaborate and create the outcome for the greatest good of all?
This is actually a fabulous example. It's a very good example because what we are seemingly talking about, delegation, and they actually call delegates, right? That's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wordplay perspective, because we're talking actually, delegation is really, when you look at it from a slightly different perspective, mutual co-creation for the benefit of the kingdom of we. You know, be this now with one person, be this now, as Tanya just said, you know, within a whole country. Or I want to add to that as well, it could be non-people, it could be your animals, it could be a co-creation, a delegation. And this is where it has come in for me with my artwork or the books. Because I have been starting to look at this. Delegation for me was like, okay, well, I need to delegate in order to sell the things, not because I need the money, but these things, these creations have a consciousness. And it is my responsibility to co-create. We've co-created together, but now they want to go out into the world, not just being looked at, you know, on Instagram or Facebook for that matter. So there's this real pull and push that I'm getting from the unseen, not unseen, but, you know, from the other kind of celestial beingness, other than human form, that is really pushing me into looking at that mutual co-creation of delegation. And of course, what do? We judge ourselves. Oh, I'm too lazy and I can do it, but I don't want to do it, and la la la. And in reality, it's Sandrine, you've mentioned so many things. What is delegation? What is a good delegation? Is clear communication, like you've said, clear communication. So Sandrine speaking to her assistant, the government speaking to its people, and me talking to somebody helping me to sell the book. Let's use the book as an example, right? So the communication has to be clear. And there has to be two parties. So like you, Tanya, you were saying, like, yeah, we've given up our sovereignty. Yes, we have, because we're sitting there, so, okay, government, you do. We appoint you, we vote for you. We have no idea what you're really going to do, but now you do it. We have to come to the party. Delegation, we are on the other side of the delegation as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is mutual collaboration. And trust cannot be established by sitting back and doing fuck all and waiting for them to come up with ideas. And this is, of course, this entire idea of government and the way it's being put together will have to fall apart, because the people have to start coming and voicing their own needs, wants, desires, passions, and actually come to the party to mutual co-create, right?
And taking responsibility for that action.
This is
as
exactly,
well.
yeah. That's the whole thing about the delegation. That is, it's you give a responsibility to somebody to do some work and then see how it fares. Either you're delegating it in the sense that that person then has a certain level of responsibility and can take also decision within that realm, and then see how that works out, or not. But the delegation, there was just something there that is coming in for me as well, is that it enabled me to free my mind of so many things that I actually have time to then go and look for something else, even, you know, coming up with new things to do, which my staff sometimes like, what is she coming up with now? But it's because of the fact that they are really able to take on more things, and the delegation is becoming easier in a sense. I'm also pushing then myself and them also to go and check and see, what can we do more? Is there something else that we can do? Is there, you know, or can we do something more efficiently? Now let's try this constellation. Okay, this is working. What can we improve? Where can we improve? And stuff like that. So it is also then freeing up things in a sense.
And in addition to that, you know, we're talking about the gift of delegation. Okay, so what you are actually saying here is, in addition to that, to put it into other words, is acknowledging each other's gifts, acknowledging your own way of working as a creator that is maybe a bit more bigger picture, you know, creating out of nothingness, having ideas. And then there is somebody else, the assistant, who has chosen to be the assistant, at least for a certain period of time, is obviously gifted in order to bring it all together. And this is the same thing. You know, I know who I am. I am a creator. What's the human design thing? Generator of ideas. So I work beautifully with somebody who loves to take the idea and knows how to put it together, because that's not my interest. I'm already thinking of another idea. This is why delegation, there's a gift in delegating. The gift is to yourself. The gift is to the person who loves to do that kind of stuff, that you are not of course we can do it. We can learn anything. And we might be good at that. But, you know, this is one of the problems. When you're good at lots of things, you end up doing nothing because you need to learn how to delegate. You know, and as you guys said, you know, there is a trust issue. You need to know how to communicate. You need to know how to be able to talk to that particular person in order that they can understand your needs and wants and passions in order to bring it all together. So the other thing that I realized was delegation is actually mediation. There's a lot of mediation in delegation. The good manager is not a micromanager, right, Sandrine? It's somebody who has trust, but trust, it's beyond trust because has a knowingness what is required for that person in order to create what I want him or her to create.
And then what also needs to come in is that you need to know your counterpart with who you're actually working with. You need to know about their capacities. They can surprise you, but you still cannot overwhelm them, because that is something that in a team that you also will notice. There are some people who you just can put on like 15 things, you know, and then there is one that you can only give one thing at a time, because that person cannot work multitask. It's not able. He can just do one thing at a time. But then he does that thing amazingly well. So you just give him the same thing in that sense, pushing it a little bit, but then other people who are, so what you also become is like a reader, and a reader of characters and a reader of, you know, of other people in a sense. And you don't necessarily have to know what they are, okay, again, I'm talking in the corporate setting here. I'm not talking about in the personal life. You don't actually have to know what they are doing, you know, after they leave work. You just have to know how they are functioning at work for that particular situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not using my people as robots, please. But it's just that you don't then also can take away all the stories that are around it, you know, in a sense, because that is not what matters. What matters is at hand is the capacity and the competencies they put at the table to do that particular job. So you also need to be clear on that this is the frame. You need to be putting the frames around it.
Well, and that's what what good management does. They look and assess the abilities, the gifts and abilities of their team and say, okay, you're going to be best here. You're going to be best here. You're going to be best over here. Hey, you know what? You're really good at this admin and coordination. You're really good at reaching out. You're better at selling. So being able to, assess those gifts and abilities and put people where they're going to shine, right? Where you can trust their gifts and abilities are going to work together for the greatest good.
Exactly.
You said something earlier, Sandrine, which I really liked, freeing the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just having this conversation with one of my clients last night about, when you're thinking about something, when you're trying to come up with a solution for something, and it's really present in your mind and you're spinning and spinning and spinning. One of my techniques is to think of your brain like a 20 burner stove. And you can take that, whatever you're spinning out on, and put it on the way back burner. And then ask your higher self, your oversoul, your avatar, your rishi, to come up with a solution. So when you put it there, you delegate to your higher beingness, okay, help me find a solution. And then the answer will just come forth when it's there, when it's ready. So that's something I've been doing for a long time. And yeah, it's a great little exercise, I think.
Let me hook into this right now. Let me hook into this because that fits nicely. Before we started recording, we talked about oneness, right? So we've all been doing this awakening business and the self-realization and the clearing of the programming and everything to come to the realization, to the conclusion that, we're actually all one, right? And we include the higher selves, and we include the shards, and we include everything. So from a one, and that's what I was thinking, from a oneness perspective, even working with our higher selves takes us out of the oneness still. because there's still a separation that we are working with. Instead of thinking, well, we're all one, right? So that person that is in the same office, that is, I don't know, working with me, talking to me on Facebook, or, you know, we are all one. So from it's difficult to explain. What I'm saying is in a oneness perspective, every single person that is around us is part of that oneness. And I've also been looking into, you know, what's happening after oneness, what's happening after. So let's say we're self-realized. So we talked about human mastery. So there's a lot coming in at the moment, but don't worry about it. So let's say we're all enlightened, right? So what do we do now? Well, create. What else is there to do? There's nothing to, you know, to learn, you know, yes, we will learn something, but there's nothing to search. There's nothing to seek, because we pretty much know we've come here for, because we are celestial beings and we're all one and we're really souls anyway. So there's nothing to lose and we're going to die and all of that. So what are we here for? To create, to manifest. That's all we're here for, right? And we're doing this already. We've been doing this as realm walkers, as celestial beings. And again, what does a celestial being do? It's a mediator, right? It's a collaborator with all the different realms, dimensions, and universes, galaxies, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So now it's a matter of, why would I not ask the person next to me that is a part of me, if it's already there, if he or she is already there, to collaborate with me? Because that's what we've come here for.
It's denying the beehive. Doing that is denying the beehive. The beehive is there. Beehive, right? That's a word.
Yes.
It's also because people might be wondering, yes, because we are all one, so we should all be capable of the same thing. Well, no, we are not, because we are different aspects of each other. Okay. So, and some people are at different levels. Some people are more interested in still running after their story and still after the nitty-gritty. And sometimes you need these people. They're very good at accounting, for instance. I mean, in, again, the corporate world, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. But still, you need to, I mean, Martina was also stating that you need to give the gift that the people bring to the table. You should cater for that gift. You know, so you're using what they're already good at, but maybe then you give them something else as well to try out new things that maybe they haven't tried yet. And then you see how they fare with that. And maybe it's opening their minds, and then they become more open, and then they, you know, they evolve, and then they might be also becoming your level of enlightenment or not, you know, so.
Yeah, and you know
or whatever.
There is an inclusiveness to that. Everything is, nobody judges anything. There is polarization from a place of celebration. You know, nobody gets triggered. Nobody needs to say, oh, I'm not better than you because you're doing this. It's not about that. You do what you love doing. It's the first time I remember when I first in my life I had a cleaner. It was so uncomfortable. I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. You know, I can't ask somebody to clean my floors or my toilet or whatever, you know. And it was in South Africa at the time. And Paul said, what the fuck are you talking about? He said, if we don't have her here, she's not going to be able to feed her children. And I'm like, oh, yes, that's right. You know, so that was the first time because it was all like, oh, I have to do everything by myself, and I have to do, you know, I have to be the best in everything. Not necessarily the best. I didn't care about that, but I had to try. I had to do everything by myself. So I want to ask that question, and it's not maybe for you guys, but for whoever is watching this, you know, how many creations, how much of the creations that you could be manifesting, creating, inspiring, are not happening because you're getting hung up about not being able to delegate, which again is collaborate, is mediate, is actually inspire each other, communicate clearly, see each other's gifts, reach out and receive. And I'm speaking to myself here because I am having to do this more and more and more. because it's just no longer possible for me to do things just for the sake of it, because the ego is not there anymore. And the more we, let go of that, I have to, I should, I would, and because then we're going to end up doing nothing. What's the point? We've got to have some fun.
That's really also another gift of delegation, the ego, the letting go of that ego. Because that is exactly what you're letting go of, because you're not putting your stamp on it. It's not your signature that is below that. Okay, you can be the tyrant in the whole game and still, just sign your name under it and say that's my work. But people like us who would do that, we wouldn't. It's nonsense, because it's like, no way, I couldn't have done it without the whole team, moving forward on that.
I mean, it's like a letting go of the falsified, bastardized, programmed, conditioned ego. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm a big fan of keeping my ego, my I am, as long as I'm here, because
I'm in Aries. My goodness, don't take away my ego, please. I mean, come on.
But that's not obviously what we're saying here, and we've obviously talked about this before, many times. But there was something else I was going to say to that, which I've forgotten now. Somebody else wants to talk. I shut up. Go.
I was just
Well,
thinking about all of the delegation in the world right now that's happening with AI. Right? It's like, oh, I'm going to delegate this artwork, right, to this AI bot. I'm going to delegate driving taxis to AI. And so I don't know, just thinking about, I was walking this morning and like one of the Waymos drove by without someone in the driver's seat of the vehicle, and of course San Francisco is a huge testing ground for all of this technology. And I just heard on the news that I was watching that Alphabet, which is Google's parent company, just put, I don't know, like $5 million into Waymo, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that development of this AI technology and company, this particular company, which has the driverless taxis. I see, of course, you see all over Facebook, AI created this art, here's the supreme creator, surfing, and what does that look like? Here's the supreme creator sitting on a throne. This one guy I know.
It's bunny, right?
A lot of this.
It's the
Yeah.
bunny. Is it the bunny pictures? The supreme being is actually a happy bunny, right?
Oh, I haven't seen
I
that
saw
one.
those.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just sort of interesting, to give away your creative power in a way, because it becomes not you. You set a series of words, a string of words, and then allow a digital entity to, run with that and collaborate, creating something totally different, totally new that you wouldn't have thought of necessarily and wasn't your intention, but here it is.
Another beautiful example, Tanya. Thanks for that, because that's beautiful delegation. And that is a very, very good example to look for triggers if anyone has issues with AI. Because what you just said, you got to feed the information into the AI first before it can actually put out a certain paragraph or something. And then you will probably change that too. But why would you not use that? Because the creative power, and this is where human mastery comes in. We got to realize we're talking from a place of enlightenment, awakened place of oneness, where we are no longer seeing ourselves as those limited human beings. The creative power that we are supposed to be stepping into is so far beyond that what we've ever been doing before until now. And this is where AI is a beautiful collaboration. And also, at the end of the day, it's entirely, again, it's a mutual collaboration. Depends what you're making out of it. There's trust again, but trust, no, there's actually discernment is the word. If your AI, whatever vehicle you're using, throws out shit, well, then you get rid of it and you get somebody else. It's the same thing. If you have a cleaner and they don't clean, well, then you get, not saying it's an AI, but also the other thing is, you know, AI, we're making such a fuss about artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, haven't we been artificially intelligent for the majority of our lifetimes? Haven't we been programmed? Haven't we been conditioned? Haven't we been told what to do?
Well, and who's also programming the AI? I mean, that's still us. It's still flawed. In a sense, you know,
Yeah, but
because there is no perfection in that. Because nobody can tell what is perfection.
and yet we've come through and said, no more of that. Because I will never forget, I remember AB in the beginning of our journey saying that we used to be the mobile phones of the prime creators. That's how we got here. And then obviously the prime creators turned sour and blah, blah, blah and everything. And now we're going to turn it around because now we've learned that we are now prime creators on some level. Delegate to create. We are here to create. There's nothing else we're here for other than that. Create, 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 manifest, 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 manifest. Not anymore from a money perspective, but from a creative perspective, from a different creative perspective, creating art, creating, you know, books, creating beauty, creating stories, creating whatever.
We're still, when we're doing that creation, you know, like you said, who's who's the programmer, we're still, you know, so many of us coming from that in the box creating. Like you said, you know, who's created your programming? Is it your parents? Is it society? Is it your first grade teacher? Is it, you know, your husband, your spouse, your partner, your best friend, right? We're coming with all of that baggage and creating. I think about what Carol was saying earlier about doing the weaving and being in that creative process of love and joy. And when the negative thoughts or feelings come up, stop. Right. And nobody can do that for you. Right. You can take your half-done weaving project and you can give it to someone to finish it, but it's going to have a different energetic perspective than is coming from directly yourself.
Yes. Also, for me, when I weave, there's a clear difference between the negative thoughts. When I see the negative thoughts as service to self and service to others. So when I create, I use create and serve basically like the same. So where am I creating from? From consciousness. When I think about artificial intelligence, it's a great name because intelligence means that it's serving the whole, right? So true artificial intelligence knows inherently that it's serving the whole system. We should not call the other artificial thing intelligence.
Well, that goes back, you know, to what Martina was saying, also creating with the power of we, right? And I'm just thinking about, you know, all that's going on in politics right now, even though I don't really talk about that or think about that all that much, but it's okay, I've hired this delegate to create with the power of we, but with that ego, maybe that person is creating from the power of me to serve themselves. So, you know, I mean, how can we shift that mentality? You know, of course, it falls within the individual, but there is, you know, the oneness polarized with those individual aspects. So yeah, that's just
No, and that's beautiful, because delegation is if you really want to look at the energy of delegation, you need to know the energy of discernment. You need to know the energy of choice. You need the energy of non-judgment, inclusiveness, you know, because at this level where we're weaving now our tapestry, there is no negative or positive thought anymore. It just all goes into the tapestry. It's all there because everything serves a purpose. Everything makes, you know, the whole you know, creation, the whole big creation much more complex, and adds that depth to it. I mean, that was my post this morning, you know, from the picture that wanted to express that. So my delegation is, I delegate every time the painting is finished. It wants me to express something about it. So I have a continuous co-creation and delegation, you know, within everything that I create. But then again, that's about relationships. Delegation is really relationship between, you know, your partners, between the projects, between your assistants, between every creation, there's a relationship. So there is a delegation, you know, mutually, either side. Even if, you know, your partner says to you, can you go and do the shopping today? Well, there's a delegation, right?
Yeah, delegation is absolutely a partnership because it is my masculine energy. When I delegate, it is that precise, that energy that sees the whole, that serves the whole, my masculine energy. And then my feminine energy that needs to trust. How many of my ancestors were mistrusting of the male? And she needs to trust and know that they're dancing. They're dancing for the crown chakra to really receive the night in my heart. You know, we've talked a lot about the night as in fantasy land, but the night in my heart that guards that space for the energy to really flow in and ground in Gaia, so I can really incarnate and be who I truly am.
Beautiful. Another great example. Now, guys, we're talking about delegation today, you know? So just think of what we are already bringing up. It is such a big topic. And how much more can we create when we are taking this delegation apart, looking at all the different areas of it, you know, destroy and uncreate everything that still keeps us from beautifully saying, hey, I can delegate. Can you all freely say, I'm a good delegator? How does it feel when you say to yourself, I delegate on a daily basis? I think I can do a bit more work on that.
See.
I feel like I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of people over on Sunday night for dinner, and I, you know, did a whole bunch of stuff before people got there, but then I worked on delegating things when people were here. And one of the things was lighting the candles on the table. And I just felt this energy of, all right, that one needs a little more spark of fire. So I asked if she would light the candles. And then her girlfriend took the matches, and I said, well, I think it should be this other one because it feels like she needs a little more spark and fire right now. And so her girlfriend laughed and said, oh, cool. You know, so it's like, okay, she was willing to step up and help. And maybe, you know, maybe for me, I should have said, oh, that's great, you know, work together, do it together. But I just really had the intuition that it should be this one person, you know, so maybe I was a little too controlling in that moment. Maybe I think they did actually light all the candles together.
You see, this is the thing, yeah? So we're judging ourselves for our intuition. Beautiful example. this is you knowing what other people's gifts are, what is required at the moment. And I think this is part of the delegation that sometimes, keeps us from really committing to all our creations, because that's the other thing. How committed can you be to your creations if you're not willing to delegate? And this is what's coming towards me. It's like, okay, well, every time I go in the studio, it's already overflowing because there's so much going on and they're all screaming at me. So am I gonna be here for the rest of my life? No, of course not. Of course not. This is a problem when everything starts talking to you. That's the other thing with oneness. So sometimes you just have to tell them to shut up, but people and paintings or whatever else is talking to you, maybe your tapestry, and things like that. But no, yes. And I think, Tanya, you made a good point there as well, because sometimes, you got to stand up for your intuition and not be, oh, that was a mistake. There are no mistakes. There are no mistakes. Just trust yourself that whatever you said had to be said. Whatever works out for them on the other side of that delegation is not necessarily always your responsibility. Sometimes, we talked about this many times, sometimes, we use the F word, I use the F word. Yeah, because it's required. I know when it is required. Or sometimes you're angry and you're shouting at someone. Yeah, nothing wrong with anger. We're not judging it. It is just an emotion it's an energy like anything else. And sometimes it is required for you to create whatever you need to create. And if you get knocked on the head for it, well, so be it. You don't have to respond to that or react to it.
Yeah, this is something, this healthy dose of anger is really important. And sometimes you just have to also maybe speak loudly about things, that people wake up. Maybe, that was not the right thing to do. Or that, or you just together, because we also have a headquarters. So, I mean, the black sheep is always the headquarters. In a sense. So that is, you always have to find a little bit of a black sheep as well, so that you can either as a whole team then, vent on it, or that you just choose one little black sheep in there and then you vent on that. But not in a sense that is deprecating and that you're also not putting people down or completely out of, their comfort zone. But it's more like, because I'm an rather explosive person sometimes, often because of my personality, I try then, I put it into the theatrical, and then I stand in the corridor and I just speak to the walls, and because I know that these walls here have ears, so somebody will have picked it up at one stage and come up with like, okay, we do that differently next time. Like, okay, good.
I think you just summarized what Lana was saying in her message. She actually said delegating the F word sometimes. And you know what? It's quite interesting because with my partner sometimes, I know exactly the way he is responding to certain things. And sometimes I totally delegate what I don't want to say to him without even saying it, because I know he will express it.
He's next to an assistant. I have a secretary and she's excellent at that. So.
But he loves doing it, and I'm like, okay, you do it. There's delegation for everything, people, because it's a mutual cooperation. It's a mediation. It's all of that. Now let's talk about.
Well,
Marina,
I just wanted to say, oh, go ahead, Lana.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to something you said that triggered me, is that delegating, when you were talking about your artwork, and I was thinking, I got all this art supply that I had gotten for a while now, and it's just sitting there, and I'm like, I don't have a space for it. to set them up and just leave them there and then just go back, like how you have your studio, right? You go back at any time. I'm like, oh, you know what? I need to delegate a space, a literal space, where I can set all this stuff up, to do, what I want to do with the artwork. And so that's another choice we can have here when it comes to delegating something. You delegate the physical space to do something. Like we delegate our kitchen just for cooking purposes and things like that, right? We delegate a dining room for eating space. We delegate our bedroom for sleeping. We delegate our living room for, entertaining and so on and so forth. We delegate a space for doing our laundry, right? Those are different spaces that we literally can delegate to do different things. So that's another way to looking at that word,
Yeah. And haven't you got eight men in your house?
No, I just got one right now.
Well, one is good enough. Just
It sounds terrible
delegate
when you say that. You
to-
said that.
to create
No,
that
I grew up.
space.
I grew up in a household of boys.
Oh, right. That's what it was. Okay. Well,
And
one
when
is
you
good
say it
enough.
like that, it sounds horrible.
No, but you're used to that as the only woman in a household with 8 men or 8 siblings. Were they all boys? I do remember that, weren't they?
Not so many, no. When I being married, I inherited, another group of boys. So it's all boys moving from one household, to another family of just boys around. So
Okay.
that's where your eight's coming in. But it's
Well, here you
it's
go.
just,
Make
huh?
make use of them. Delegate. You
Well,
need
no, they're all gone. Everybody's gone their own way.
hold them, bring them in.
Everybody's
Commitment to you. But you see, this is the other thing. Delegate. Have a chat with your art supplies, whatever you have, even if it's just pens or paints, and say, guys, how can we delegate to create? Oh, this is a good thing. Okay, this is a good question. How can we delegate to create? And ask the art supply to come in and co-create. How can we delegate to create and co-create? Anyway, ask and see what happens.
delegate a space to co-create.
That too, bring the space in too. Absolutely, yes.
Well, and I think there's the flip side of the delegation, which seems to be very action oriented, right? Carol was talking about the masculine energy versus the feminine energy. And that feminine energy, right, is the allowing, the stepping back to allow whatever's been delegated to be completed. So I think, that push and pull is equally important. Because when you delegate someone to do something, you have to allow them the freedom to do it in the way they're going to do it.
Yeah. There's this flow. I've just done a painting with first time watercolors. Very different for me. Very feminine. And then I chose gold as well. It just threw me. I was like, oh God, no. This is always because, male is like oil pastels. Yes. That kind of thing. Watercolor, I'm like, oh gosh, and gold. So it's finished now, but that was interesting. There was an integration like the one you just mentioned going on. And this is why art and all these different sort of mediums or whatever you call it, is so powerful, because it really speaks to all the different parts, and bringing it all together on one canvas is almost like the micro version of the macro. Very true.
Well, allowing the water to do its work,
Mm.
right? Which isn't necessarily what you intend.
Mm.
You know, I think about also Jen's paint pouring and
Mm.
how, you know, when you're standing, you know, 4 or 5 feet above a canvas and pouring a mixture of paint, right? The paint is going to do what the paint is going to do. That energy of fluidity, of fluidness, it works its way around the canvas. The colors swirl in the way that the kinetic motion is flowing. And like our friend Jen was saying, when she pours the paint, it's like whatever seems to be present in her energy field will come through in that picture. So again, trusting and allowing that the right energy is going to come up to the surface for that collaborative play, which isn't an easy thing. You know, we all want to control things. I do. I'm learning to be better about delegating and allowing and stepping back, right? Not always having to say things. You know, I think Lana's been especially quiet today. So she's sitting back and allowing the conversation to wash through her and over her and filter into her world, you know, like all of us are when each another one of us are speaking. And that gives the room for the magic.
I'm
Martina,
delegating a
Martina
space.
allowing, oh, Martina allowing the conductivity of the watercolor to work with your light.
Mm.
And Lana was going to say something, but I also was thinking, are we allowing our dragon? Are we allowing our dragon? What other things is the dragon ready to do that we can allow even more and more?
You know, the dragon energy is it interesting you mentioned that in you know, in the connection of delegation, because that's actually a very good point. I mean, all of us, we do work with our dragons, right? Some day less, some day more. And this brings up an interesting point. Are we willing, because the dragon energy is a huge, strong, very creative energy. And every creation, every project, every delegation is a match of frequencies. We have to have a signature frequency match in order to even see each other and be in each other's vicinity, right? So it's like, if we're not willing to delegate, if we're not willing to be the celestial mediators, if we're not willing to be those collaborators, then, you know, we will not be able to be a match to that dragon energy.
When we first got on the Zoom before we started recording, Martina says, "Tanya, how are you?" And I said, "Hey, I'm dragging ass today." And she said, "You're a dragon ass?" And I said, "Yeah, I like that a lot better." So that, I mean, just that play of words, right, shifted my perspective from what was going on with me to a totally different perspective. Now I feel much more energized because I
Yeah.
allowed that dragon to blow some smoke up my butt.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, "Ooh."
And
Now I
this
have
is
a different perspective.
exactly, and this was the point actually of why I've, you know, what I was gonna say is, just because we are delegating our needs to somebody doesn't mean, again, there's no hierarchy. So are we willing to delegate our needs to potent energies, to dragons? Or do we have to delegate to little mice because we need to lift them up? So the delegation is not only about lifting up and inspiring other people. And I think all of us are very, very familiar with that. But sharing our needs is a level of vulnerability. Delegating is a level of vulnerability to somebody's energy that might be quite a bit, what's the word? Almost like, oh, that's too much for me. Well, is it really? How much of our creations are we holding back or limiting by not allowing ourselves to delegate with potent energies like dragon energies? Or people who have more education or more money or God knows what, you know, more experience. There's two ways. There's always two ways, ups and downs, inside outs to look at it. Again, I'm going to ask the question, are you willing to delegate? With total ease and joy. And yeah.
I don't know if we are, the question is if we're willing to delegate. I think we naturally do that. I think we naturally delegate because it's in us to share the responsibility, so we don't get overwhelmed by what is before us. So I think it's a natural part of us to do that. That's how I feel. And if you don't delegate naturally, then those around you, you're withholding from them in a sense, you know. You're not giving them the opportunity to share in that co-creative space. It's like you being greedy or hogging the co-creation. And so when you look at from a higher perspective in that sense, being that we're all one, the one is doing the sharing, the one is being the creator, the one is sharing the space, and the one is sharing the responsibility, right? That's
Yeah,
where
and
I'm looking at.
we are the one. This is the thing. This is oneness. We are the one.
So you can't withhold delegation. It's just a natural thing.
We are everything. So at the end of the day, yeah. But and you see, I like that. And then you got that delegation. Delegating is also an asking for having our needs met. Delegation is asking for having our needs met. Now that's where I do question, how good are we asking for having our needs met? I certainly can still work on that.
I think we can all work on that.
Yes. When we started this conversation, I asked my inner self, let me know what's blocking my best delegation. And what's coming up for me is vanity. Vanity for insanity. Is thinking that I am more than. And because I think that I am more than, then I don't act. See, it's vanity.
So this is an interesting one. Let's look at this one. Vanity. You think you are more than.
To think that I am more than. So because I am more than, then I don't delegate. And it could be that I delegate to the mice, which is a distortion of it, or that I simply just not do anything and then get resentful. It's ego-based female energy.
No, no. It's do you know what it is? Misunderstanding.
It's what?
It's a misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding.
For me, it's a misunderstanding because you are more. You are more than. That's what we're working towards, to be more than. So now this is the oneness, right? But that's the tricky thing, the dichotomy, the oxymoron, because once you realize you are one, you are more than just one, You gotta ask.
Okay.
You gotta ask. This is the thing. Once you understand oneness, you're no longer separate, but at the same time, you need to ask for what you want. That makes
And
sense?
there is no vanity involved in anymore. Because that is, you can look at it from the point of view that you are more because of you're vain about it, because I'm better in a sense. That is what you were hinting at. And then, but when we are talking about this oneness where you just open yourself up, you cannot be vain, because for what? For whom? You know, nobody's looking at you, nobody's telling you what. No, you know, it's like whatever, do whatever you want, you know, but what brings you own your pleasure in a sense, in that way. So the vanity aspect of that, I get you what you were pointing out at, and it's true. I get that because when, again, for the delegation, you just need to open up for it, because otherwise, and you need to let go of the programming and the story that is behind it, that you can do it all and that you have to do it all because that is how the winner is and the winner gets it all and all that. No, that is what we need to let go of. Exactly.
Well, and it seems to me that there has to be a responsibility on the part of the delegator, right, of that collaboration. I just think about when I was, you know, working in tech, and you know how my direct superior was, I mean, trusting his team to do the work, but then, you know, when he was reporting to the higher ups, he wasn't acknowledging that there was a collaboration, right? So it made all of us delegates feel unappreciated, you know, and then consequently resentful that, oh, here you're selling your ideas as your own when this was a collaborative effort. So, you know, there's a responsibility, I think, of trust and collaboration when we're working like this, that, you know, again, maybe it's ego, maybe it's that power of me instead of the power of we, right? And it feels like culturally we're on that precipice where those, even though there's a oneness, it's almost like those concepts are separating, and there's beings who are, I don't know, maybe moving into a different timeline, who are acknowledging the oneness, and beings that are moving into a different timeline that are acknowledging just their meanness.
This
But we
this
talk,
is, yeah.
let me just say one thing before I lose the thing, because that fits both what Carolina and what Tanya just said, because actually we're talking about the creation story, right? Oneness. How does oneness create? How do we create in oneness that we're finding ourselves without going into separation? So what did oneness do? It divided itself into two so that it could delegate, create, ask for, needs, mutually co-create. So we are back into that now. We're all one. So now we have to, without going into separation, hierarchy, competition, but we still have to ask, but from a different perspective. It's a different sense. We're no longer asking from the ignorance of not knowing that we are all one. We're asking from a oneness perspective, educated intelligently, from a choice perspective now, that yes, we're all one. So now we can finally co-create, because all the ones that we are have different gifts. That's the whole point. That's why we've come here for. So we've come full circle. There is no vanity. There is understanding. That's clarity. This is what, actually comes in. If we don't create, if we don't manifest now, we haven't understood shit. We haven't understood what this enlightenment business, this human mastery is. The only difference is that we no longer co-create, delegate from a place of hardship, from a place of separation, from a place of judgment, but now from a place of joy, from a place of choice, from a place of discernment. Who wants to be part of me?
I want to be part of you.
Ah, yes, let's do it. We are.
You, I said you plural.
Sandrine, your turn.
No, you just concluded very nicely on the point. I was just going to pick up again on the role of the tyrant, you know, or those people that are playing the tyrants or that are playing the bossy, the bad boss in a sense, and not the enabling factor in seeing that a team can only work if you are leading it in a sense that it's also doing its teamwork and that you're acknowledging that that team has actually done, you know, the work in a sense, but it's your role in that team leading to lead it so that it can come up to its utmost potential in a sense. And you're not taking on any crown or anything like that. You're just happy with everyone that you did a good job, which is also something that you need to learn, especially when you have been programmed, you know, differently. You know, everybody's just running around. I'm the queen of, I'm putting on my crown. I'm like, really? Then I have a puzzle of I love sometimes to do puzzles, and I have one of Alice in Wonderland, and I just love when the Queen of Hearts runs around and says, "Off with your heads," you know, because that's exactly what we need to do. Off with the heads.
So you're talking about responsibility, so did Tanya before. So do you know, from a oneness perspective, the real responsibility now, in addition to everything that we've just mentioned, is also acknowledging our different soul shards. We are continuously, perpetually, you know, co-creating, delegating with. And we talked about, before we came on, we talked about potentiality, different potentialities and different timelines, and just bringing that thought pattern in that, yes, we're sitting here having this conversation, which is absolutely amazing, but, and how many shards, parts, avatars, versions, aspects, fragments, this entire hub of interconnectivity that is co-creating with us here. The reason why I like to send out a topic a couple of days before we gather is purely for that reason. Because as soon as I put in writing the topic, the hub of interconnectivity comes together, and I start noting things down throughout those days. What comes, you know, what comes in, what can we talk about? And that's not because we can't just sit here, talk out of nothing. You know, we can do that because none of that, what we're talking about, is scripted. But it's almost like the past, the present, the future. We know everything is coming together now. Those versions of ourselves on other timelines that are experiencing other potentialities want to be a part of that delegation, want to be a part of that co-creation. I'd almost want to say, let's practice that. I certainly will, as we're talking about this now. It's like, you know, I'm making this choice today to sit here, but there's another version of myself that is at the moment painting or doing this or doing that. So I can delegate whilst I'm doing this because we're multidimensional beings. And in actuality, this is what we're doing here, what we're talking about here is not something that we are actually creating. We're just remembering that we are doing that. So many of our, you know, versions are living in different galaxies, on different planets, in different timelines, obviously, dimensions. It's all happening. So that co-creation, and this is part of the responsibility for ourselves. And once we take that, once we embrace that, once we cultivate that, the delegation, mediation, and everything outside of ourselves is a piece of cake. And then we are matching that dragon energy. And it's going to be so easy to say, hey, dragon, I need this. Hey, let's work with this. Hey, kick my ass here today. You have permission. And then the dragon will say, hey, I haven't been here for some time. You know, I have to get used to all of this again. What can you contribute to me? And this, of course, goes for all the other species. I mean, we're talking about galactic citizenship by the end of what, 20, 40, 50, whatever. Because that's what we actually really have come here for. Everything that we are discussing, every energy that we are practicing in this reality is pure practice. It's just practice because every micro has a macro. And we need to remind ourselves, and this is why we do these shows, we need to remind ourselves to not, especially with what's going on at the moment on the political scene. It's brilliant. Look at the patterns. Oh my God. I was looking at this. Okay, assassination attempt, Trump failed. Now they kicked out Biden. Would they have kicked out Biden if that would? No, it is a different timeline. I mean, this is another Mandela effect in a couple of years' time, depending on which porch you're sitting at, right? Oh, yeah, they did assassinate Trump in 24. What? No, they didn't. You know, it's like, okay, where am I doing this in my own life? What I have that I acknowledge. And also, how does that impact me? Because if I have another MG sitting, you know, creating some shit, you know, on the moon at the moment, then I want to know about it. Because it's having an impact on my solar plexus. And that's the responsibility after we have awakened, whatever that means. That's what it means to me. That's the next level. Appreciating, embracing, cultivating our multidimensional delegation, co-creation.
When I drew a crystal card today for the group, lepidolite is the one that came up. And lepidolite has a lot of mica in it. Sometimes it's soft pink and soft gold. Just grab one. But the lepidolite is really connected to the energy of feeling consciously. There's lepidolite. You can see sort of the shimmery mica. And actually, it's about the same color as my shirt here, this particular one. But there's also gold lepidolite, which I really like, which is more the color of Martina's overshirt there. So I just wanted to bring in that energy and just talk a little bit consciously about feeling what it feels like to delegate, you know, whether it's a task or whether it's energy, you know, whether it's connecting with those multidimensional versions of ourself. How does that feel?
Good question.
In our bodies, in our emotional bodies, our mental bodies, our physical bodies.
Good question. I can kick it off. For me, it's a conversation like I'm having with you guys right now. It's a dialogue. It's a continuous dialogue. Sometimes it's a bit more boring though, because I have to give myself the answers all the time. You know, sometimes, you know, I'm trying to, you know, do something with music. I have to turn the music off because I'm constantly having these conversations. But very creative. Frustrating. It was frustrating in the beginning because there was no validation of whatever came up. But yeah. How is it for you guys? Good question.
That's a great question. My answer comes by I am about to have lunch and I don't want to delegate that. I really want to have a delicious, nourishing lunch. So yeah, not delegating when it's right is also really fantastic. And those are my last words. I gotta go.
Thanks for being here, darling. Thank you very much for your contribution. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Yeah.
Well, immediately when you talk about delegation, and that is only because over the years now I have learned to do it. For me, it's the spacious, it's creating space, and that is all I need. I feel when I have space, that is what I need. And space can be frightening as well, I know that. Because sometimes there is too much of it. But no, immediately delegation for me, it's like, okay, it's free, it's freeing up space. It's, I get to use something else in my brain to do something else, whatever that is at that moment. I'm sorry for the noise that is, yeah. We delegated some work.
I mean, I think for me, there's, when something is delegated and then completed, there's a great sense of joy of accomplishment. So allowing ourselves, I think, to pat ourselves on the back for a job well done or completed. It doesn't even need to be good, but the fact that it's come full circle from the seed of creation through the whole facilitation of whatever the thing is.
That is also something that I in my career as a managing person, that I started to do, is that when I close my office and I go out, I just tell the whole building, in a sense, thank you. I mean, some people, I say goodbye if there are still some people around, and I always say thank you. Thank you for today. Thank you for the work that has been done today. And if there is nobody around, I even say thank you. I'm just saying thank you because I think it needs to be said. And even if there is nobody there to hear it, I know that it will be left there because the good energy will be left there of, somebody that appreciated that the work that has been done today, in a sense. And that helped me again a lot to also leave, in a better state of mind than, with still tons in your head, like, no, I'm just saying thank you. Okay, and then I move on.
That's complete
Giving the closure.
closure to it. Yeah. I think to your question again, one more thing to your question, I was thinking, Tanya, how does it feel to have this multidimensional delegation and co-creation? There is a sense of camaraderie. There is a sense of what have I written down? I'm such a self-entertainer. I never feel alone, even if I'm alone in the house, because I have that. And it's not that I have all these voices, blah, 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 blah. It's not that. There's a sense of, this has become my sense of home. Because I've been practicing, when I travel to other places now, I've been practicing to bring that home with me. That sense of, and it doesn't keep me from making connections with other people. Yes, there is, I do consider myself as an occasional hermit because I enjoy, my space. But equally so, when I'm out of my space, I can shapeshift into whatever is required right now. And there is a delight in my own endeavors. There's a delight in my creations it's almost like, because everything is alive. Everything is alive in that place of oneness. And it doesn't exclude anything or anyone for that matter, It's just a shift. You shift, like in a manual car, you just shift gears, continuously, depending on, do you have to stop? Okay, well, you go into a lower gear. That doesn't, turn you into a vegetable or something. You're still whoever you are, but because that's just the acknowledgement of, and the gratitude, like Sandrine was saying as well, of having a physical body that allows us to experience all of that, because that is that whole experiment on this planet. because on other planets there is no such as other kind of experience. I'm sure there is, but not necessarily that kind of tangible feeling, as you say, touching, eating, like Carolina just said, that kind of thing. So, and this is the invitation before we're going to close off today. I'm delegating. We are all delegating to you guys, to whoever wants to take charge of that joy, of that possibility, potential of just whatever you do, find joy in it. And you're never alone. There's no such thing as aloneness. You only know when you're alone, when you're with people that you actually don't want to be with. You can be in a crowd and you're much more alone in the old way of description, right? Because frankly, from an enlightenment perspective, there is no such thing. There is oneness. And as soon as you go into, like we said early on, pain or your distress or trouble, okay, you gone into separation. That's it. Expand yourself out beyond your body, because your body, your soul is not in your body anyway. It's a projection, it's an astral projection. You know, the body is inside of all the etheric body and all the other bodies that are there. Just expand yourself out and see what happens. See what other sort of communications you can have, that you can actually delegate shit to. All the things you don't want to do, right? My last words, what are yours?
In the work that I do delegate some of the work to the crystals.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I'm finished and I'm putting my crystals back out of the person's energy field, I'm thanking them. So feeling that gratitude as well. But also the gratitude to my own willingness to expand out of that place of fear and control, into this place of co-collaboration. When I first started doing Zooms with y'all, I was always thinking, what am I going to say that's, going to be amazing? And now I feel like I can just not worry about that. I can just let that energy flow, right? So this process of being a part of this group, participating in this co-collaboration and co-creation, has allowed me to get out of my own way in a lot of ways. So I have gratitude for that, and for you all. Thank you.
Gratitude for you being a part of this and for your contributions. And yes, whatever you do say is amazing, if I may say.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. What about you, Sandrine and Lana?
Well, again, I also believe that delegating some of my processing to this group, in a sense, has also helped me move forward on many other levels. And I have certainly come to this point where and it's not an empty phrase when I say that, I know that when I need something to be done on a certain level, I know that Martina is very good at that, I will just send it to her. I mean, send it in whichever way, either text message or just like spiritually, in a sense, like she will be good with that. And I know that then there will be a return, and other things as well with people in here where I know, I mean, you are kind of, because I'm done with the painting thingy, and Jen is still continuing doing it. Martina now picked it up, and I'm like, okay, this is still something outflowing for maybe a need that I had, but I physically now in my body cannot do it anymore for whatever reason, but I'm putting it out there through other people, in a sense. It's another delegation. It's a funny one, but because I recognize things that are, happening in your paintings, I'm like, okay, yes, interesting. And for Jen, the same thing, it's like, okay, yes. And I'm not interpreting it in any sense or way and calling it, this is mine. No, not at all. But it's just like, I know that now one part of me is actually still doing that, but it's not me who is doing it. And that is good. It's good. It brings me relief again and space, and okay, it's being done in a sense, you know, so I don't have to worry about it. The core is being done in a sense, but just somebody else. And this is something that I just came to embrace with this group. And there are other groups that I'm also a part of where I noticed that then, you know, I can delegate other things to those groups. So that is, and what it has brought to me over the last year and also the last 2 years that I'm engaged with, you know, this sort of working is because of working, so participation and creating participatory knowledge, because that is also what brings you forward and opens you much more up for understanding and embracing the oneness as well.
A very good point. I mean, you know, I'm delegating all the crystal work to Tanya. She's perfect. I'm delegating all the baking to Lana. We have yet to taste her bread, but you know, but this is almost like looking at the mirror, you know, or we having reflections. If I'd come to Lana's house, I wouldn't bring her, I would expect her to bake me some bread, you know what I mean? I'd never come and do a crystal workshop, because I'd call up Tanya and say, hey, can you please come? I need somebody to do a crystal workshop, because just not what I'm interested in, you know. I'm interested in hearing about it, but not running it, you know, and that kind of thing. And that's oneness. That is oneness. That is delegation. And yeah, Lana, what is?
So when Sandrine was saying that she doesn't, you don't want to do the artwork anymore, and I was thinking of how we're all one. So you're shifting the one being is shifting its creative, artistic values over to another aspect of itself, which could be any one of us, and so the aspect that is you is finished with that, and so it goes to another. So it's never lost, it's always around somewhere. You can always find it, and you find it in so many people, right? But I'm also thinking that like Tanya was saying before, I was thinking that I'm dedicating time every week for the past, how many years you've been doing the show?
This
4
is our
years?
year. Yeah, fifth year.
So I've been with the show from maybe almost the start of it, right?
Mhm.
Tanya and I. So we're dedicating that time week after week after week to be here and to share and to get to know one another and to bring in our values, what we are thinking and our thoughts, and sharing it, but not in judging each other or anything like that, but to just collaborate all that time and thoughts and ideas and efforts to the oneness. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this space every week, and I'm grateful for um, the the things I learn from listening to each other. You know, so all that is it takes your time. You have to dedicate that time to fill in, to open that space up and to be here. So I'm grateful for all that.
Thank you. And we are grateful for you and your commitment to
Yeah, thank you.
delegation and creation of
I mean,
our.
we're all committing, we're all grateful for each other for committing that time, because if we didn't do that, this show wouldn't be still going on for 5 years.
Exactly. I suppose commitment is another word we have to look at, because it's so easy, right? It's not that it's a hardship. Sometimes maybe you'd rather be in bed, but then, you know, the dragon comes in and kicks your ass. So here we go.
Drags your ass out of the dragon.
Fantastic. So want to leave everyone with
But before you leave us with that, there was something else I was thinking about now when I was talking before about delegating a space. So I bought this this rack recently, and I was thinking I was going to use it for a specific purpose, but it's not a very big rack. But however, it was too big at the same time to fit in the space that I wanted it to go into. To use it for the purpose I intended it. And so I'm thinking now, well, I have this rack. What am I going to do with this rack? Where am I going to put this rack? I have no use for it because it's an inch too big for the space it is supposed to be fitted into. But as we were talking about all this stuff, it suddenly dawned on me, hey, Lana, you could use that for all your art supplies, all your art stuff. Put them in the rack. It has 3 layers. You have enough space to put all your junk in there, and it's in one space.
amazing.
And it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. And so when I need it, everything is in the same spot. And so I got out of this whole show a good answer for that rack. Look at that. That's fantastic.
Woohoo! I need
See,
one.
you delegated your answer.
That's
And then-
right.
And it popped right in when you needed it.
That's right. If I didn't participate to dedicate the time to participate today, I wouldn't get the answer for that rack.
Absolutely.
Because for days I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this rack now? Where am I going to put it? What am I going to use it for? It doesn't fit for the purpose I got it. So now I got the
Rackety rack.
answer.
Let it
Yeah.
talk back.
Exactly.
Amazing.
I just wanted to say today is the last day in the galactic calendar,
It is.
the 24th of July. It's the red self-existing Earth Day. So, we're being grounded. Tomorrow is the day out of time. And then the 26th kicks off the year of the rhythmic storm. So let's see what we're manifesting in the next 365 days.
Fantastic.
So I got a day off tomorrow. If tomorrow's the day out of time.
Mhm,
Yay!
mhm, Exactly.
Play music and dance all day.
Yay. That sounds good. That sounds good. Thanks, ladies, for being here. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you soon. Thank you.